Hey folks, welcome back to Mark Kelly Farm. As promised, today we are processing this beautiful hunk of pork. You can see we have them hanging for the last 3 days. It's been perfect hanging weather. It's getting down into the mid-20s at night. As you can see, we're not frozen, we're still pliable, and we've been cooling down for about 3 days, and that's what you want. Otherwise your meat starts getting bloody when you're trying to cut it up. So let's get with it. I've got this one cut down off of the hook. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take this ham off, and then we're going to take this front shoulder off, and then we're going to work on this loin section. So to take this ham off, come in here right behind this last bone, and we're going to cut it straight through here. And you'll feel, once it gets through the bone and into the meat, right there, that's as far as you got to go. Then you use your knife. We've got all of our tools that we need out here. We've got some meat hooks, some sharpeners. We got our bags that we're going to start putting meat in. And then Kelly's on the camera today. She's home. She's going to be helping with all this and vacuum sealing as we go. So we're through that bone. Now we're just going to go down through the rest of the meat, just like that. And we'll put our ham over here. We're going to mess with it later, after we get done with the loin section. Now here, to take this front shoulder off, we're going to go between the third and fourth rib in here in the rib cage. You can see right 1, 2, 3. It's going to be about right there. And then we got the other end of the rib right there. So we go through that. Okay, we're all the way through the bone. This is just a small meat saw. You can get these at any meat processing place. The number 83, whatever that means. But they make bigger versions. I have a lot bigger one too. But I love this one. So we're going to take this the rest of the way through. Like so. And again, we'll put this front shoulder over here to play with later. So there are different ways you can go with this loin section. If we wanted to do bone-in pork chops, we would just slice this pretty much even with this right here, down to about right here. Most of this you can cut through, and then right with the saw you would cut right through there. We're still going to do that, but we're not going to do bone-in chops. We're going to peel those chops off of the loin because I want the baby back ribs that are on the top. But if you do bone-in pork chops, you don't get those baby back ribs. They're part of the chop. So let's get sawing through the bone right here. Goes through really easy. And just kind of pull it apart as you go. Okay, we are through those bones. For the rest of this, right through there. So, this is going to be your spare ribs and your bacon. This is going to be your chops. But remember, we want these baby back ribs. So we're going to peel this meat, the loin meat, off of these ribs. So I start here at the back. Let me get my smaller knife. And you want to find right next to the backbone. So just follow that backbone down. Staying closest to the bone as you can, because that meat kind of goes in at an angle. And you don't want to waste any of that. Of course, using the baby back ribs like we're going to, that just means there's more meat on the ribs, which some of you may want to do on purpose. So this goes clear up into the neck meat. So we'll follow that bone around. Pull apart as you go. And we're all the way down to the bone. Where the bone makes a corner right there. Comes down and goes in. So now we're going to flop it. We're going to do the same on this side. And this is our baby back rib section. Turn this around so I can work at it a little better. So we're going all the way down to that corner that we went to on the other side. Work in here again. Trying to find the top of that bone and work right around it. So this is getting up into the sirloin, the neck section. So we're going to carve that off because we're going to make some country style ribs out of this section here. Let me get through that bone. Professional butcher would not have done that. I'm not a professional butcher by any stretch of the term. So now we're going to start working that off the bone. So we'll probably flip this over and peel it a little more from this side. Okay, there's all of our pork chops right there. So we're going to have a bunch of nice boneless pork chops. And then we've got our rib section here. So once we get the bandsaw going, we're going to take the bandsaw and we're going to cut right along here. And that's going to give us our little baby back ribs. So I'm going to start cutting this into chops. So we'll show you the first few. And then we'll get to packaging these things and we'll come back when we're doing some other stuff. So turn this over. You want to trim off any kind of unsightly stuff you got going on the outside. Just kind of make it look nice. If you do a good job skinning, which we skin this pig, we normally used to scald them and shave them, and you come up with the pork skin on the outside, so usually you'd have this covered with skin. But we skinned it, and if you do a good job skinning, you don't get hair and everything all over. Start at the top, work your way down, and then the meat stays clean, because all of the dirty hide, I mean, we wash it, of course, before we skin it, but all that exterior hide is on the inside when you peel it down, so your meat stays clean. All right, we got some stuff here. We're going to have a trimming bucket that we'll get going for all of our trimmings right there. So a lot of that will go into our grind. So I'll trim up any loose meat we got over here. Not a lot of it. We did almost okay doing that. So I'm going to turn this over fat side up. We want our pork chops about 3/4 of an inch thick. So you just come right down through in a sawing motion. You don't want to do a bunch of little cuts, but see that nice beautiful chop right there? Nice long strokes when you're cutting those. Now some people trim these up after they cut the chop. I like trimming them a little bit like we just did, trimming some of this fat off the back of it. That way you can do it all at once instead of on each individual chop. Let's get that bone section out of your way there. Even with those mid 20-degree temps we had, this meat is still fairly workable. I like it even a little colder than this, but we got to take what we can get. It's supposed to get 61 degrees here, so we needed to get going. So you can see these beautiful pork chops. Lovely, lovely little pork chops. We're probably going to do, well, however many Kelly wants to put in the package. I would say like 4, but we'll leave that up to her. So I'm going to temporarily stack these in here, and then Kelly's going to bag them up and put the bags in there to take in the house. The vacuum sealer, if you've ever used one, if the seals on the vacuum cleaner get cold, they don't hold a vacuum. So we have to do all the vacuum sealing in the house. I learned that a few years ago when we harvested a deer. We had the vacuum sealer out when we were cutting meat, and it wouldn't work. Thought it was broke. Went and bought a new one. And come to find out that all it was the seal was cold. So we're going to set this aside for when we get the bandsaw going. It's always good to have some nice stainless steel surfaces to work with. So we're going to carve the spare ribs out of this belly. When I slaughtered the hog, I cut a lot of the diaphragm out, which I don't like doing, but I was by myself and I wanted to get it done. But this diaphragm meat right here, on a beef, that's your skirt steak. And I really like pork skirt steaks, so when you buy a spare rib at the store, it's going to have some of this meat on here. You can carve that out and barbecue it. It's super good. So we're going to take some of this dry fat off the top here. Leave all that meat that you can. Be careful doing this so you're not taking any meat off. Stay as shallow as you can get. You can see I got into the meat just a little bit there, which you don't want to do. Any butchers watching this video are going to cringe. But you got to learn somewhere and you got to do it. We've done it for years. You only do it once a year though. You don't get as good at it if you're doing it 8 hours a day like these butchers downtown. A little more of this dried fat off of here. And we're just going to throw this in the bin. We're not going to use it in any sausage. It gets this way from hanging. You get that dry texture to it. All right, that's about as far as we need to go. So you want to find the ends of these ribs, and your spare ribs will even have a little cartilage section down here on the bottom. So what you want to do is come through and score it right below your rib section, like that. Find the end of it there, and that's where you're going. So now we can turn this around and start peeling these ribs off. And it's the same process. Stay right underneath those ribs. Don't get down into that bacon. And just peel those off. You can feel the nice the knife rubbing against those ribs. Just run it right against them. Use those ribs as a guide. You're going to go right to where you scored that. Oh, left a little one of those cartilages in there. Not a problem though, we can get it out of there. So folks, there's your spare ribs. Got a little bit of a bit of that bone left up there. Get rid of that. Let me get my bucket over here closer. Have you a garbage bucket close by? So those spare ribs are pretty clean. Throw that in the grind pile, but we can package those up just like that. So we'll lay these in there. This is my grind pile over there. So now with this bacon, we have our bacon. We'll square it up and we'll show you. There's your bacon. Just looks just like bacon, right? So we're going to square this up real nice. This goes into grind. Anything we take off of this goes into grind. So I'm going to come through and I'm going to kind of even out the thickness here. And there's still a few of those cartilage bones in there we're going to get out. So we're going to take this top portion off. Probably a little more. Yeah, there's a little bit of that cartilage still on there we got to get off. Brandy wants to get at that other half of the hog hanging up there. All right, let me find that piece of cartilage in there. It's right there. So that goes in the grind. So we're going to take, there's some cartilage right there. Okay, it's all gone now. So we want a nice, good square piece of bacon. So we're going to stop it about right there. And then this is going to go into grind also. So as I go, I'm going to cut this into pieces that will go through the neck of our grinder. We got a really good size, almost commercial grinder over there. So we can take a piece like this and just drop it right in there. So we got the two ends squared off. We're going to square off this end as well. So we got nice symmetrical bacon going on. That goes in the grind. So there's your bacon, folks. We are going to cure this for a week. We'll show you the process. We're going to make a mixture together, a brine, so to speak. It's going to be more of a dry spice, but when it sits in the bag, it kind of turns into a brine as the juices come out of the bacon. So we got nice flat piece of pork belly there. You don't have to make this into bacon. You can barbecue this if you've ever had barbecued pork belly. That fat will render down. It's really good. You can make pork belly burnt ends out of that. But we're going to make bacon out of that. So we'll lay that right in there. So this part of our sirloin up front, we're going to get in here and peel this bone section out. And this is up into your neck portion. So the bones, you got little curves in here you got to go around. Just kind of follow the seam where the meat meets the bone. Feel around with your fingers. Now you could do bone-in country-style spare ribs. You just cut it across that way with a bandsaw. But I like boneless. Gotta find the edge of that bone. Like that. We left a little meat on there, but we'll trim all this off of here, and I'm not going to waste it. This will all go into our sausage. Okay, that's all pretty much boned now. We'll put this into our trim pile. So this is going to be country style spare ribs. So what we're going to do, not spare ribs, country style ribs. You can also just turn this into a chop if you wanted. But I like boneless country style spare ribs, they're really good. So we will package those up just like that. I'll probably trim a little bit of fat off of this end over here. Just so they're not crazy fatty. I'll trim the tip off of this one. But those are nice country style boneless ribs. Fantastic with a little barbecue sauce. And then we'll throw that good fat into our grind. So we're going to take our front shoulder now. And we'll trim this up. So we want to get all this nasty dry stuff off of here. Any of the blood meat. Just cleaning it up, that's all we're doing. Some people will throw that right into the grind pile, but I don't like doing that. This meat here on the edge is dry from hanging. We'll pull that out. And I'm sure there's nothing wrong with that meat. I just don't like the idea of it. I'm sure they didn't throw that away back in the day.
It's dog treat.
Yeah, doggy treat. So this kind of extra piece of meat hanging off here, we're going to clean this front shoulder up, take that off, take some of this old dry stuff off out here. It's a little bit of really tough kind of sinew right there. Get rid of that too. Now run your fingers through all that stuff, make sure you got no bones going on or any really hard cartilage. And then that can go into grind. So I'm going to continue pulling this bone off of here. This is the little front section of your ribs. Okay, we didn't leave a lot of meat on there, but whatever we did, I'm going to carve off of there. We usually do this after the fact, but if we do it while we go along, we can get this done faster. It's plenty cold out here this morning to where we don't have to worry about this meat heating up. Because when it heats up, like I said, it'll start bleeding on you, start bleeding out of your package, and then when you go to vacuum seal it, the blood's going to want to run up into the vacuum sealer. Okay, that's pretty well cleaned off. Now you could take bones like this and boil them down and make stock or whatever, but I'm not a big fan of pork stock, so I trash these bones. This, of course, goes into the grind pile. Now, what we have left here is our shoulder, which is often called a Boston butt. And right now it's bone in, of course. It's a bone in shoulder. Can you hand me the sharpener, babe? Always want to work with a sharp knife. These are really handy. If you can find one of these at your hardware store, you don't have to be an expert knife sharpener. And they work really good. So what you have here is your Boston butt roast and your picnic. Now, your picnic you can actually turn into like a ham. But we're going to make smoked ham hocks out of this that we can eat with beans and such. So this is pretty well trimmed up. I can take this flap off right here. And then we'll put this flap into the grind. Get a little bit of that dry blood meat off of there. So you got a better look now at our picnic roast and this is our pork shoulder Boston butt. So when we fire up the bandsaw, we don't have to use a bandsaw, I can use a handsaw. But you're going to cut it right here. This will be your butt roast, this will be your picnic. And I'm going to cut these into probably about 2.5 or 3 inch sections. And then we're going to brine these and smoke these as smoked ham hocks. So let me cut one just so you can see it here. I'll do it about that big. I'll scrape some of the bone dust off of there. So we'll brine that, and that'll be a nice smoked ham hock. And then you can put that in a pot of beans, and as it cooks, it'll all fall apart, and you'll have that meaty goodness of all those bones and tendons and all that. And you'll be able to just pull the bone right out. There's no skin to deal with. That'll make a terrific pot of beans or some really good soup. Now we have a food grade bucket. We're going to put our hams and ham hocks in. We'll get that out. And let me see how hard it'll be to cut another one of these off for you. So really cheap handsaw. You don't need a bandsaw like that if you got one of these. Slippery. Okay, all the way through the bone. Come in there with your knife and finish it off. Scrape that bone dust off of there. Get that beautiful ham hock. And when we brine these with that Tender Quick, these are going to turn a beautiful pink color just like ham. So we're going to stop the video for now. We're going to get the bandsaw ready to go, and then we'll come back. So we're trimming up this ham now, just cleaning it up. There's a little bone right in here on top of your femur, and you want to just work your way in behind this little bone, and you'll get down to the joint, and then just work the tip of your knife through that joint, and you can see the ball socket right there. We're just taking this bone out of here is all we're doing, and then it comes right out. It's got a little meat on there, but it's kind of blood meat. There's your socket joint, if you're interested in anatomy. And then we're going to trim the top of this ham flat, like this. This is going to go to grind, and then we're going to cut the hock off of this too, because I don't want this big bulky hock on the end. So our ham is going to look like this when we're done. And then this we're going to make another smoked ham hock out of. So let's get in here. We'll square this ham up. Again, we will cut this into grinder friendly pieces. Just like that. Goes into grind. We're going to trim a little bit of this blood meat looking stuff off of here. Got a little dry stuff going on here. I think the rest of that looks pretty good. So let's get the bandsaw fired up like I said, and we will get this hock cut off, and we'll get this ham put in the bucket. If you look at the bucket over here, we've done a whole side, and this is our waste. So very little waste. You want to use every part of the pig, obviously. So we'll be back in a minute. So we trimmed the spine portion off our baby back ribs, two sides of it. I want to carve some of this meat out of here and put it in the trim pile. But there's our baby back ribs. We're going to cut this end off of it. But that's our nice little rack of baby back ribs. I'll trim up a little bit. Wouldn't hurt to leave that on there. So about right there. Don't need a bandsaw for everything. So we got our nice little portion of baby back ribs. Trim this ugly stuff off of here. Now, a little trick. Hand me one of those hooks. That one that doesn't have the protector on it. You can take one of these little hooks or anything kind of sharp, and you get down in here underneath this membrane. And you can get it started coming off. And then you want to take it and peel that membrane off. And that'll make for a much better eating experience when you cook these. And then we'll do this with the spare ribs also. Once your hands get greasy, it doesn't want to hold on there very well. But you get the idea. But it's almost impossible to do with a knife. You got to get up underneath those things. So there's the last of that. So we'll put these over here in a pile to be packaged. We're going to trim up a little bit of the leftover meat off of this spine bone here. A professional butcher either wouldn't have this meat left on here, or he wouldn't worry about it and just throw it in the bin. We don't want to waste any of that hog. It gave its life so we could eat, so we want to respect that. Alright, there we go. So, we cut apart our pork shoulders. If you've done pulled pork, you know what these are, you know what they look like. And we'll package those up separately. We've got our ham that's going to go in our bucket, along with our hocks. We'll show you how to brine that here in a little bit. We may need another bucket. But we'll trim some of this off of here. Just to make her look nice. You don't want to take all the fat off of that. You want some to make it nice and juicy when you cook it. You can see how thick that portion is. We can take a significant amount of that off. Flatten that out a little bit. Now let's square it up a little bit. Get the end of that off. That's good fat. Alright. Little bone dust on there. This one here looks pretty clean. As you go through, you're looking obviously for any hairs that fell down on the meat, anything like that you want to get rid of while you're doing this. Now, if we had a constant temperature of mid-20s or 30s over the week, this would be a little more firm than it is now. But at least it's still not bleeding. So, that is one whole half of a pig. The other half we are going to do in the same fashion. So that's it for today. I hope you learned something. We're going to come back tomorrow with some sausage making videos and show you how we grind that stuff and get it made into sausage. It's super easy. If you saw our sausage video yesterday, you don't need all this fancy equipment over here, all the stuffers and all that. You can do it just with some spices and a bowl and some meat, and you got sausage. So, till next time, stay safe, stay healthy. Say bye, Kelly.
Bye, Kelly.
We love you guys. See you later.